morning, everybody. I was inspired to make a video right now. I had a little bit of a koach with a good friend of mine, Rabbi Eric Kotkin. We went to yeshiva together. I hope he still considers me a friend. I hope he understands that, you know, talking and learning, and we're discussing different issues in Torah. It's not meant to be vitriolic or disrespectful in any way. It's meant to be talking and learning. That's how we learn. That's how we go over a Gemara and we examine what it says and so forth. And so too with contemporary issues, it's the same thing. And so I said something that was perhaps provocative, but it was not intended, excuse me, to be disrespectful or hateful, and I think maybe that's how he received it. And so I just, maybe it's, when you're writing things on Twitter, it's hard to get the tone out. But the purpose of the provocative nature of what I was saying was to bring out a point, at least my point. I'm not saying you necessarily have to agree with me, but to be intellectually honest on a particular point. So, Rabbi Kotkin tweeted something. He's at the college rabbi on Twitter. And he's a fine man, a Talmud Chacham, an Erlich. Nothing against him. Might disagree on things, but we're supposed to. That's how nobody agrees with anybody on anything. But I have my personal views on issues. And I feel that, you know, you can't have it both ways. It's kind of the feeling that I have about this. And it goes as follows. So he tweeted something from a missionary group, probably the most famous mission trying to convert Jews to Christianity, is Jews for Jesus, and they've been around since the 1960s, I guess. Their founder, I think, was Moshe Rosen, passed away a year or so ago. You know, it's funny how he probably never grew up with the name Moshe. He was probably, I don't know, Mark or Marvin or something, but he wanted to sound really Jewish. It wasn't enough to be Moshe; he had to be Moshe. You know. And then he had to spell with the I, you know, it's really not the first, excuse me, missionary group that focused on Jews and tried to, you know, take them away from Judaism, using a Jewish flavor, but it's probably one of the most successful, unfortunately. I think I would say unfortunately. I'm not ashamed to say that. But at this point, it's a reality. And so I think we have to react to these groups the same way we react to other groups, both inside Judaism and outside of Judaism, and claiming to be Jewish, not claiming to be Jewish, and so forth. And the picture that he tweeted was of a Lubavitcher Chassid holding a Tehillim, Book of Psalms, and it was some kind of a caption about belief in Jesus. And what Rabbi Kotkin was suggesting was that, well, first of all, it's most likely illegal that they just took this picture. I'm sure whoever and this is what Rabbi Kotkin was saying, and I agree with him. I'm sure whoever the picture is of, I'm sure he's quite upset that his image is being used to promote Jews adopting a different religion, even in the guise of remaining Jewish. That's obviously a very good point that he's bringing out there. Well, to go a little bit further, though, is that, and I think Rabbi Kotkin was saying this as well, is that perhaps Chabad Messianism, a large sector, perhaps most likely the majority of Chabad Hasidim, have a belief that their Rebbe, who passed away over 20 years ago now, that he's Mashiach. Now there's different discussions in Halach and Hashkafa, what exactly are the halachic and hashkafic ramifications of such a belief. Rabbi Kotkin is bringing out here, I'm thinking is what he's bringing out, is that in a certain way, what Jews for Jesus is saying, I don't really think this is necessarily their intention, but in the broader scope of things, it certainly is associated, but not only this, but many other things. It's not just Chabad, it's really every aberration of Judaism essentially justifies Judaizing movements of Christianity or Christianizing movements of Judaism, and I do believe there's a difference between the two. And justifies them being labeled as a form of Judaism. So I remember when I was a Bacher, I spent a Shabbos once in Kfar Chabad. And they told us, they said, well, what's the difference? They said, no, you could believe, because of the Gemara in Sanhedrin, that Mashiach could come from the dead. It doesn't really say that in the Gemara, but all the Gemara says is if Mashiach would come from the dead, who would it be? Would it be David HaMelech? Would it be Moshe Rabbeinu? That's what the Gemara says. It doesn't say that he would come from the dead, but if he would come from the dead. We have to notice that that's how we learn Gemara. It's not, you don't just take things out of context and make a whole new theology out of it. And that's a problem that Chabad has today. It's not the way Chabad was for 200 years. But certainly it's a question of what point in history did it change. Was it by the Rebbe Rashab? Was it by the Rebbe Ratz? Was it by the Ramash? Which one of these Rebbes really changed it? It seems like each one of them changed it a little bit. And the last one, the Ramash, he was the one who really changed things a lot. And then after his passing, then things, since being without centralized leadership, perhaps it could be said that certain things went a little bit further, but I think most of these ideas were already present while he was alive. And no matter what people want to disagree with on these issues, it's certainly he planted those seeds. But that's neither here nor there. As Gevein of Vorleid, I don't have any problems with the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He was a fine Vorleid. He was a good Ehrlich Jew. He was a nice Rebbe, and he had a lot of impact on people. There are a lot of Chassidish Rebbes, and he accomplished a lot more in Oil Ma'asiyah than a lot of other Chassidish Rebbes accomplished. And so we can talk about the chashivas of what he accomplished. It's not it's easier to. This is New Jersey 253. The Schlecht. Stop gas. The Schlecht. Okay. So anyway, the where do we turn here? So why this guy's going the wrong way? Let's see if I can get around him. I think there's room. So anyway, let's see if there's room over here. I think I can fit here. So that's how you're supposed to go on the. We should just get a few dollars. So anyway, the point, what I'm saying here is that essentially there were times, that they would take something, something. I was listening recently to someone. Yes. Hello, how you doing? Let me see what I got here. We'll get $15 regular. Cash? 15 regular.
Cash?
Cash, yeah.
A little more?
A little more? Okay. We're good? Alright. Here you go. So, and so there were changes in the ideology and the theology of Chabad that developed, if you want to use at least in the colloquial term, the term theology, the way many Christians use the word theology today, which isn't really theology, but they're developed the theology around the tzaddik, which is rooted in the Tanya, but it developed into a unique aspect of the tzaddik, that there would be one Nasi Hador. This theology, it's not, I guess, I'm thinking it's probably developed around the time of, like I said, of the Rebbe Rashab. There's auch gewesen a Voilayid. He was a big tzaddik, the Rebbe Rashab, and but but essentially, the point that I'm saying here is that it developed into something that was different than Yiddishkeit had been, even the Hasidus had been, and there have been aberrations throughout history. Here you go, sir. Thank you. God bless you. Have a good day. And new and unique theologies have developed, and different ideas of Judaism have developed all throughout history. There's nothing new or unique about this. It is what it is. It's been part of Jewish history for many years. And so they'll come up with this idea of the Nasi Hador. That's nothing to do with Mashiach. Forget about Mashiach. Nasi Hador. So what does it mean, a Nasi Hador? It means that Mistama means that's the one who would be Mashiach if the messianic times would come, whatever. But so now even after, but how do you decide? Who decides who's the Nasi Hador? We don't have a Sanhedrin. You can't just make up an idea and just declare yourself a Nasi Hador, or your Hasidim is going to declare you the Nasi Hador. It's one thing they say, you're the Nasi of this Kehillah, you're the Nasi of Chabad. That's fine and good. But this idea that somehow the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and also would seem the Rayatz and the Rashab, that these were the Nasi of the whole Klal Yisrael. Even people never heard of them somehow It's like lahavdil. It is a pope or something that's not that doesn't exist bisman hazeh. In the time when we had the Sanhedrin, when the whole Klal Yisrael was unified, it's a different story. Bisman hazeh, there's no such concept as the Nasi Ador, and all Lubavitchers believe this. Meaning, even those who do not believe that Lubavitch Rebbe is Mashiach, it's a central idea of the Chabad theology today, and it's not the theology of the Malachim and the others who are also Chabad Hasidim, or the Kapister Hasidim. They don't really exist anymore. They all became absorbed into Lubavitch. But they developed a new theology that is, I would say, it's foreign to Yiddishkeit. It's not kfira. You're not doing an avera. You still count for a minyan to believe such a thing, but it's a shtus. And tzaddikim can also have shtusim. And Reb Nachman Breslover said there's a big chashivas in having shtusim and being involved in silly nonsense things. So, and there's a time and a place for nonsense and silliness. But this is in the gather of nonsense and silliness to say that somehow Lubavitcher Rebbe is the prince of the whole Jewish people, the president, the prince, however you want to translate Nasi. And they point out, and they make the whole theology how they say, well, they find one Sefer Kabbalah that says that Nasi is Rosh Tevah, the Tzaitzil Shel Yaakov Avinu. That he's a spark of the patriarch Jacob, and think about it. Is that a clear a raya brura? Is that a clear proof that therefore that there is even such an Indian bisman hazeh as a Nasi Ador? First of all, and second of all, that Lubavitch Rebbe is the Nasi Ador. Why is Lubavitch Rebbe the Nasi Ador and not Chaim Kanievsky? Or not the Sklener Rebbe, not the Chveis, David Abba Katsera, whoever you want to say. Why is Lubavitch Rebbe, who isn't even from this door? It's 20 years have passed already. A whole door Hoilich v'Dor Ba, is already, the door is over already. Maybe he was the Nasi of the last door. If first of all, if you want to conceive that there's such a thing as a Nasi door, but the thing of that is that in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, there were 12 Nasiim. All right, Moshe Rabbeinu was the Nasi over all of them, but every Shevet had their own Nasi. And so somehow, so I don't have a problem that a Shevet has a Nasi. The particular tribe, they have their prince, their leader, their president. So from the Chabad tribe, and it's one of the Shiftei Yisrael. I'm not gonna, but if they saying like that, then they're part of Klal Yisrael. I mean, some years ago, the Lakewood Shiva was talking to Satmar Rebbe from Monroe, and he was trying to convince Satmar Rebbe to participate in the Sifa, and the Satmar Rebbe from Williamsburg was participating, and the Satmar Rebbe from Monroe wasn't interested. And he had good reasons not to be interested. He had many good reasons not to be interested. I have tremendous respect why he didn't participate, and I have respect why those who did participate also participated. Elu ve'elu dev'ru l'kachayim. So Lakewood Rosh Shiva said to Satmar Rebbe, he said, this is an event, the whole Klal Yisrael, you have to participate. So he said, Satmar Rebbe asked, is Chabad participating? And the Lakewood Rosh Shiva said, Chabad is not part of Klal Yisrael. And essentially, I think if they have this theology of, and when we say not part of Klal Yisrael, the same way that the Reform is not part of Klal Yisrael, the same way Mizrahi is not part of Klal Yisrael, it's not just meaning when we say the whole Klal Yisrael, meaning the Cheredisha Oilam. And there are times to say that Klal Yisrael is only the Charedim, and there are times to say Klal Yisrael is everyone who is halachically Jewish, and there are times to say that Klal Yisrael are those who identify as Jewish, even if they're not halachically Jewish, but not those who are halachically Jewish who don't identify as Jewish. But there is a certain point where I think everyone agrees that even someone who's born Jewish, they stop being part of Klal Yisrael. And it's clear from this that my friend the Rabbi Kotkin agrees with this, that he says the Jews for Jesus are not Jewish. Now I don't know if I'm saying l'shitaso or not. Meaning, and that's what I want to know. Meaning l'shitaso, meaning if they have a Jewish mother but they believe in Jesus, are they no longer Jewish? Or is it just because or is it just a racist issue that a lot of them happens to be that their mother, that they weren't born Jewish, but they identify very strongly with the Jewish people and biblical ideas of Judaism and things, and what they think is the original Judaism, or what they think was part of the Jewish community 2,000 years ago. And on account of that, they believe that there's something going on there. But there's really more to it than this. Because two things, on two sides. The fact that Judaism accepts certain groups and certain people, we have to ask ourselves, where does it come in selective tolerance? Meaning certain people, they'll accept an atheist if he's pro-Israel, but the Neturei Karta, because he hates Israel, or he hates Zionism, even though they might be the biggest Oyehave Yisrael, and they would take the shirt off their back to help somebody, but because of it, but because they have a different view, a different theology, even when we use the term about Israel, then other groups have their theology about Israel. And the question is, who's newer? And the answer is really, they both are reactionary to the same events, and so they're both essentially they're both really from the same time, but and both can argue on which sources that they're arguing about are more authentic or whatever, at least from the religious people. But the thing is, the secular, meaning like my friend Rav Asher Meis always says, he doesn't understand Orthodox Jews. They'll listen to secular Israeli music, but they won't listen to Christian music when they're singing from the Psalms, from our holy Tehillim. Now, I personally don't listen to either, and I do listen to Christian preachers on the radio, but I try not to listen to music, because I feel that music has an inyan and a neshama, so I try to avoid listening to music because I don't want to have a neshama connection to these things in that way. But the fact that, and also most of it's not very good music anyway. I mean, because I do listen to some secular music, and but the thing is that he has a very strong point. Why, we really have much more in common as Orthodox Jews with Christians and Muslims and other religious people, certainly Christians and Muslims who are from the shared Abrahamic heritage, than we do with atheist secular Israelis who just happen to be speaking Hebrew, but they're really no different than anybody else, and we shouldn't be elevating them to a higher level just because they're speaking Hebrew. If you want to say it's a Hashavas Haveda, you want to bring them back to God, that's a different thing. But it's not like that. There are people, there are Orthodox Jews, they love the Israeli culture. I'm not talking about loving Rabbi Kook and this and that. I can see you get inspiration. Rabbi Kook wrote very beautiful poetry and nice ideas and things that I can understand. That's at least a religious expression. But to say, they listen to Dag Nachash or whatever, I don't know, and they won't listen to I don't even know. And Dag Nachash is probably from 20 years ago. I don't know who's Sarit, Galit, I don't know what these people are, but whatever their names are, the popular Israeli singers, like they make a whole. It's like an avoida to listen to Israeli music, and it doesn't make sense. Whereas Lamaisa to listen to and to get a chap inspirus, get some inspiration from listening to a Christian who's singing our holy psalms. And it seems like it's really just racism. It's not. There's no. I mean, that is obviously racism. There's no other explanation why a religious Jew would listen to secular Israeli music and not listen to Christian music from Tanakh, from a Christian school, Old Testament. Songs that don't mention Yashka. It doesn't make any sense. I think a lot of it has to do with even a lot of essentially Orthodox Jews really aren't that religious. They go through the motions, but they're not really spiritual people. But nowadays, more and more people are getting into spirituality. There is more of a and spirituality. Rav Shamshon Mefrol Hirsch is very spiritual. Spirituality isn't what people think that it's sitting in a kumsitz. That's nice too. I don't have a problem with that either. But there's a time and a place for everything. But the fact of the matter is that by virtue of the fact that we accept atheists as Jewish because their mother's Jewish and they have some patriotism to Israel, or they don't even have the patriotism to Israel anymore. They're already like post-Zionists, but like the hummus and falafel and the hatikva, and that's somehow that's kosher. The fact of the matter is we have a lot more in common with Jews for Jesus who are Christians than we have with the secular Israelis, for sure. I mean, the Jews for Jesus we can compare to Reform. Reform also, many of them are not halachically Jewish, and yet a lot of Orthodox Jews, especially in the modern Orthodox world, have a certain level of fellowship with the Reform Jews, even if they're not all halachically Jewish, and most of the vast majority of them not Shomer Torah mitzvos. And the same thing could be with the Jews for Jesus. There are even some Reform, certainly in the old days, certainly in the 60s, Rev. Victor Miller spoke about this, that were Jesus freaks. So if we're accepting the Reform, we're accepting the secular, much worse than the Reform. What's wrong with Jews for Jesus? How can we meaning if the whole issue is, well, they're not really Jewish, it's the same thing with the Reform. If the whole issue is the theology, and look, the atheists are much worse. Much worse, the atheists than the Reform, than the Jews for Jesus. I mean, we have very similar theologies with very similar political ideologies and so forth when it comes to Christians and so forth. We should have much more fellowship with them. That's one aspect. The other aspect is, so then we're going to have to make a separate video about this with the question of Chabad. And so we'll put this aside and we'll talk about it later. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and all the best. Thank you.